everybody, Fiber Spider back again in the kitchen with another tasty video for you. Hello, hope all of you are doing really well today. Thank you for joining. I'm doing great because we are going to be baking up something fabulous. Now, the holidays are approaching, and when I think of the holidays, I think of baked treats, specifically cookies, especially really decadent cookies. And I was inspired to make up a recipe that I had done a while back, orange marmalade. So I made a bunch of jars, and then I'm like, okay, what can I do? So I found a really awesome sauce recipe for making marmalade cookies. And this one is a little bit different because the marmalade is mixed into the cookie dough. And what's great about it is that it produces a super chewy, flavorful cookie with a bit of the sweet, a bit of the bitter, with the marmalade in there. And also because I leave the little bits of the peel in the marmalade, they become sort of candied inside of the cookie as it bakes. It's so delicious. Oh my gosh, I love them. Now the yield is not tremendous. I baked this once before and the yield was about a little bit over 2 dozen, so it's not crazy. Personally, I like a recipe that, it's more like 3 to 5 dozen. I'm a greedy little spider. But of course you can double the recipe and that's totally fine. So I got all my ingredients recipe, which seriously, there aren't a lot of them. It's very basic, it's very simple, and I think you guys are really gonna like it. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello again. All right, so I got my ingredients. We are all set to go. First things first, we are going to start with some butter. Now, oddly enough, it doesn't call for an entire stick. It just calls for 1/3 of a cup. Thank goodness for the little lines on here. So 1/3 of a cup is from here to here. So I would say it is about 2.5 tablespoons less than a full stick. And this is unsalted as per usual, and it is softened to room temperature. Now, I made a little bit of a mistake the first time I made these cookies, and I will go into that. Just give me a moment while I scooch this. All right, so that's 1/3, about there. Okay. All right, so just gonna scooch this into here. Yeah, so the mistake that I made, now typically I do not like using a stand mixer, although I'm sure it would make my job easier. I like to do everything by hand. And so the sort of mistake that I made was adding in some cold ingredients before the butter and the sugar had been completely mixed. Oh, ooh, it was not good. I'll go into that more. Just give me 1 second. My hands are all gooky. Okay, so what I'm getting at is that because I added some really cold ingredients, hence the egg that we're gonna have to add and the marmalade, that it sort of hardened the butter a bit before I had incorporated it completely, and that made my job a little bit more difficult. So I would strongly suggest really work the butter and the sugar together before going on to the colder ingredients. So as far as the sugar, well, we already have 1/3 of a cup of butter. Now we need 2/3 of a cup of sugar. So let's do that. There we go. Also, I have my oven preheating to 375, by the way. Don't know if I mentioned that, but now I am. So chances are this is going to take me a bit of time to work the butter and the sugar in together, which is okay, but I'm probably going to do a bunch of this off camera so as not to completely bore you. So I'm going to work on this off camera, mixing this together. It's a labor of love. I do not mind it, but it does take some work, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so after a bit of doing, this is my result. And so it's sort of, you know, wet sand clumpy as far as the butter and the sugar go. Could be better, you know, if I used a mixer, but you know what? I'm fine with this. You know, the results should be just fine. Okay, so from here, I'm going to add 1 egg, which I've already taken the liberty. There we are. And going to add 6 tablespoons of marmalade. To me, that seems like a lot, but actually it works really, really well. So I'm gonna finish up part of an existing jar, go into a new one. And this stuff is so good. The only thing about making your own marmalade, I mean, it's easy, don't get me wrong. It is, however, very time consuming. So we've got 1. More or less 2. A little bit more. Okay, that'll be 3. Oh, there's the oven. Okay. All right, this will be 4. I just need to get into the next jar here. Oh. Okay, and 4. Five-ish. And more or less 6. Doesn't have to be exact. There we go. Okie doke. There we are. One more quick second. Okay, now the recipe that I found didn't exactly call for it. However, I'm going to also add in a teaspoon of vanilla. I love vanilla. You know, even though you can't tell that it's in the recipe most of the time, it's still just one of those things. There we go. Also, don't know if I mentioned it previously or not, but I'm going to mention it now. I'm going to put a link to my marmalade recipe in the description box. You know, it is really, really, really quite easy. I've already made 2 batches in like the past 2 days or so. It's very easy. It just takes time, that's all. And It's about this time you can see what I'm talking about, how the butter is separated from the rest of it. If you have a stand mixer, I would go with that. However, in spite of that, I really didn't have any issue with the cookies themselves. You know, just try to get this mixed as evenly as you can. Try to make it homogeneous. The smell is divine, by the way. Okie dokie. Now, 2 more things to go. Some flour and some baking powder. Starting with the flour. Gonna need 1.5 cups of flour. I'm using all-purpose, as I usually do. And yeah, that is 1/2 cup. Okay, so we'll do 3 of these. One. 2. And 3. Okay, and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Not baking soda, baking powder. So I need 3 of these. These are 1/2 teaspoons, so 3 of these. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then just mix this to completion. Whoop. And I have a cookie sheet all ready to go with some parchment paper. Just trying to get all of the little dry bits of flour. Now, of course, also, if you don't feel like making all of the cookies that the dough whips up, you can, of course, also take some of the little balls of cookie dough, put them on a cookie sheet with parchment paper, put that in the freezer, let that sit for a couple of hours until they get nice and firm, put those in a Ziploc bag, and then you can store them for whenever you want to. I have done it countless times with cookie dough recipes, and it always works out really well. Just want to make sure that the cookie dough is thawed before you bake it afterwards. Okay, we are good to go. Awesome. Nice and mixed together. Oops. All right. We got ourselves some cookie dough. Okay. On to the next step. All right, so now for the fun part. Got my little cookie scoop here. It is, I would say, about maybe 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon per scoop. And if you don't have one of these, I would strongly recommend it because it makes my job a heck of a lot easier, I tell you. And I'm just gonna plop these on here. Oops, get over here. Now what's funny is that the initial recipe that I had found, it said that this makes 40 cookies. I don't know how small they were making the balls of dough, but 40, I don't think so. Yeah, with me, I think it was maybe 27 or so that I ended up with, which is fine, you know, for a small batch. I'm greedy for more, but 27 works. Another nice thing about this is that you don't need to chill the dough prior to baking. And one more. There we go. All right, so I got a dozen on here. Gonna pop it into the oven. Like I said, it's at 375. There we are. And setting my alarm, well, my timer for about 15 minutes. Now, of course, baking times may vary. Initially, you know, like the recipes, you always have to take it with a grain of salt. It said 8 to 10 minutes. Honestly, it looked not baked enough, quite frankly. So I went from, instead of 10 minutes to 15 minutes, and it seemed to work out just fine for me. Now, also, my cookie sheet, it's in the middle rack, and yeah, 15 minutes works for me. You may need to play around by a couple of minutes for your oven. I realize, you know, it's not definite, you know, it's more of a ballpark thing, but in 15 minutes, I will meet back up with you, and I will show you what we got. Alrighty, I'll see you in a bit. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes. I think my timer is all ready to go. Yep, it's time. All right, let's get these guys out here. Oh, these look fabulous. Absolutely. Nice and golden, thereabouts. And the smell in here is to die for. Now I've got another rack to go. Second timer ready. There we are. All right, so another 15 minutes and those will be done. Gonna let these cool for a bit before transferring them over to a wire rack. And I have a little bit left, so I would say approximately maybe 3 to 4 left for here. And, well, gonna let these cool, and then I will meet back up with you for the tasting. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I got all my cookies out of the oven, and the grand total for today's batch was 29. Not bad, it's pretty respectable, I think. Of course, yes, I would like more, so there is, of course, always the option of doing a double batch. Nothing wrong with that. You know, aside from some slight mixing, I wouldn't say problems, and I wouldn't say issues, because the cookies themselves, they look fabulous, but I think that if I used a stand mixer, it would come together easier, but I like having less to clean up and deal with. That's just me and my personal preference. Now, for the taste test, we got to do this. You know, it's a moral imperative, so... And if these are anything like the ones that I made before, they're going to be so chewy. Mmm. 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 Very, very decadent, rich flavor of the orange. Little bits of the peel in there. Get a little bit candied, very, very nice. Now, at the moment, the exterior is just a slight bit crunchy, and the interior is nice and chewy. Now, the ones that I had previously, after sitting in a cookie tin overnight, they weren't crispy and crunchy on the outside anymore. They were completely nice and soft and chewy. That could have something to do with how I stored them. I don't know, but so good. I would say a nice balance of sweet and bitter because of the marmalade. And I would say just not too sweet. There is such a thing as too sweet, believe it or not. Also, I think that a really nice addition to this would be to add some slivered almonds and maybe some dark chocolate chips. I think that that would be pretty good. Now, as far as the amount to add to this, because it isn't particularly a large batch of cookies, I would say maybe if you were to add those extra add-ins, perhaps I'm thinking maybe half a cup, maybe, half a cup, or maybe 2/3 of a cup of chocolate chips, and then additionally another 2/3 of a cup of slivered almonds. I think that that would be actually really quite good. And that would be just to add perhaps a little bit more texture, perhaps, as well as some more nuances of flavor. I think that that might be actually quite good. I do love a chewy cookie. Excuse me. I do love a chewy cookie. I can't even speak. I'm so flummoxed. So good. Well, as always, I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below, because you know that I appreciate your appreciation. And I want to hear from you guys in the comments section down below. Have you tried a recipe like this before? What was similar? What was different? Because there are so many recipes out there. And speaking of which, I would like some inspiration from you guys. If there is a particular kind of recipe or a technique or something like that in the kitchen that you would like me to try, let me know. I have a bunch of ideas lined up, but hey, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned, so let me know what you think in the little comment section. And of course, as per usual, ingredients will be listed in the description box, as well as a link to my marmalade recipe video. This stuff is so good, and I am so glad that I started messing around with it in other capacities as well. I mean, yes, it's fabulous on crepes and in thumbprint cookies and on some toast, sure, but, it makes a really great add-in for cookie dough. That being said, again, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous day, and you know what to do until next time, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay making fun, fabulous, tasty treats in the kitchen. Share them with yourself and those around you, those you love. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.